Happy New Year, everybody! Selbi once again here, and welcome to the second episode. And we finally have a real name for this show. German Balance Team Fortress 2, instead of German Guy Demonstrates Your TF2 Balance. I thought it'd be a good idea to use a name which is pretty similar to the original one, German Guy Demonstrates Your TF2 Balance, without making it like a complete surreal name. Now, with that being out of the way, let's get to something more or less disappointing. After last episode, I received more than 40 different item suggestions. It was quite a difficult task, to say the least, to pick the best ones for this episode, but that's not the real problem. The real problem is this. I had to reject 13 different item suggestions, or at least alter them. That's because many people didn't fully understand what I was saying in the last episode, so I'm going to be very clear right now. Guys, if you make an item suggestion, prove it if it works with this page, list of item attributes on the Team Fortress 2 wikis. You can try to submit item suggestions, but if it doesn't appear on this list, I cannot add it. So you're basically wasting both your and my time by submitting something which ultimately will not get into the game. So yeah, please do both of us a favor and just check it next time if it works. Because really, updating this list every single time just because someone didn't actually check the wiki, it's annoying, to say the least. So instead of writing down every single time an item attribute has been rejected, I will simply ignore it. However, if there's an item attribute which I thought works at first but later on proves out to be not working, like the MVM restricted attributes I showed you the last few times, those are obviously still getting added to this list because they have a reason to be there. And because I thought it'd be the best idea to make a consistent format, here is how it all works. Every Sunday is going to be an episode. From the release of the episode to next Friday at 6 o'clock UTC +1. That's my time zone. In that time span, you can submit item changes as much as possible, and all accepted submissions will then be added to the website. I would try to update the list pretty much every single day, but if there only were like 2 or 3 suggestions, there's not really much point in updating the list every single day. But on the deadline, the list will be updated, so you can make sure that everything you see on Friday will be the only possible item changes to be in the episode. But enough of that, let's get to the items. This time things are a little different. I'm going to split the suggested items into 4 different categories. First, I will show you one fail of the week. And by fail, I mean like failed concepts just because they didn't work out as planned. And it's going to be an interesting fail, not just it doesn't work or something, because that's only wasting time and doesn't do a whole lot. It's going to be an interesting fail, trust me. Next, we have changes to existing items, like buffs, nerfs, or completely different approaches. Maybe even trying a couple of new things for an existing item concept, which aren't necessarily going to be the best suggestions for the items, but maybe trying multiple different approaches at once. After that, we're going to talk about completely new items, and I have a question for you guys. Someone recently had the idea of showing the new item concepts based with weapon reskins or completely new models from the Team Fortress 2 workshop. While for me this will mean a lot of extra work, it maybe will add some appeal to the entire thing. So if you think that's a good idea, leave your opinion down in the comments. And finally, at last, we're talking about the highlight of the week. And by highlight, I do not mean this is the best idea ever. I mean this item is so insane. Maybe it's just a joke, but personally, I think that's the most interesting, funniest, or just craziest idea of the entire week. Alright, so, see you in the game. Alright, let's start with the fail of the week. And this fail, really, it is out of this world. I can't even explain it. The idea was to get an early concept for the upcoming Grotboard items for the medic, which on one hand was the Mercy Killer. It has all the normal attributes from the normal Righteous Bison. It does not require any ammo, it can penetrate players, and the projectile cannot be deflected. On top of that, the damage to builds is also only 20%. But the difference here is that on hit, 1% Ubercharge is added. While that seems to be pretty small, you have to keep one thing in mind: minus 50% projectile speed, which means it is going to penetrate the players multiple times, even more than the original Righteous Bison does. An interesting concept, really, if it wasn't for one huge problem. As you can see, it takes up the primary slot in the loadout, which is normal and which is also what should happen. But for some reason it takes up the secondary slot in the game, and by that it completely replaces your medigun. Well, it does work, no question here. Let's take a look. I shoot this guy sometimes, and I already have 11 Ubercharge. But it doesn't work. That alone was already strange enough, but here comes the really interesting part. If I use my mouse wheel to scroll through my items, I get the Mercy Killer. But if I use my keypad, press 2 and then press mouse 1, it gives me the medigun. Yes, as if this entire thing wasn't already strange enough. To what it comes down, all I can say is, this is an interesting idea, but with so much failing, there's really nothing I can do. So that's why I picked it for fail of the week. Alright then, let's move on to the changes to existing weapons. First off, we have the Fan War, and this change, it is a little bit dull, but it does do the job. 65% faster weapon switch, which is the same as degree cell on the Pyro. So essentially it now becomes some sort of puff and sting for the scout. Let's see how it works. So the weapon change is almost instant now, and you actually get a chance to make use of this weapon, which was a huge problem before, because before that there was no real reason to change to this weapon, because by the time you have it out, mark someone for death, switch back to your primary, by that time you could have also already killed him, so it didn't really make any sense. But let's see how it works in an actual gameplay scenario. We're here on Dust Bowl now, and oh, I have a bunch of snipers there. Let's run up to them. Okay, pretty much failed on the last one, but you saw it's really not that bad. You can actually make pretty big use out of this weapon now. You have a good chance to puff and sting someone before you even notice what's going on. Fuck me and my aim. Seriously. Next out we have the spy with the yeah, how do you call it? Litrenger? I don't know. That one spy revolver. So here was the idea to make a revolver that focused more on the cloak attribute. And it does this by doing this. It's 100% more accurate, which means it is always going to land the shot, no matter how quickly you fire. Instead of 15, it's 20 cloak on hit, but it now has a 60% damage penalty, which pretty much means it's now doing absolutely no damage whatsoever, and is pretty much an escape plan for the spy. Well, that's already the Dead Ranger, but yeah. Alright, let's look at a real world example. Whoops, I am dead apparently. Uncloak. Get some cloak back, get the hell out of here. rinse, and repeat. Moving on with the Demo Man and the Scottish Handshake. Originally that weapon was nothing more than a bottle reskin for the Demo Man. But today we have strange bottles and everything, so there really isn't any reason for this weapon's existence anymore. So let's slap some stats on it. Plus 1 health regenerated per second on wearer, but minus 25 max health on wearer. I'm doing this on tier walkway again just because really there isn't much to talk about this weapon, so I don't think we need an actual gameplay scenario. Little backstory here, the attribute was originally from the Cozy Camper for the Sniper. And just like there's a small, I would say, bug. Instead of 1 health regenerated every second, it's much rather 2 health regenerated every 2 seconds. It doesn't make much of a difference, but it's happening, and it's worth mentioning. But it's still useful for the small fractions. Like for example, I'm falling down some steps, get a little fall damage there, and no longer need to be required to find some source of healing. I can just use this weapon and no longer worry about it. In the long run, that's pretty much everything in this weapon does though, because look at this. This would take around 2 minutes to fully heal, so it's not really that much worth giving up 25 health over. And to conclude the changes to the existing items, we have the Pyro with the Home Wrecker. But before we get straight into this item, there's something you need to know. This is a collection of different suggestions all put into one item, so I don't want exactly this weapon into the game, I just want some of the ideas to be discussed. When the weapon is active, it's still doing the extra damage versus buildings, it's still removing zappers, but you are now taking 50% less damage from sentries, and you have minus 75% reduction in pulse force taken from damage, which was taken from the man treats for the soldier. So when you're approaching a sentry, you actually can sort of run to that instead of just being pushed away. Now while this does seem good on one hand, you can't use this weapon brain dead, so running straight to a sentry won't still get you killed before you arrive there. This weapon should much rather be used for ambushing sentries in a short time. So there's a sentry behind this wall, which I'm going to run around now. I'm still taking a great deal of damage, but I actually have a chance to use this item now. But if there's an engineer constantly repairing the sentry, it's only so useful. Take a look. So you still need to get rid of the engineer first to make actually use of this item, but standalone sentries actually have a reason to be ambushed now by this thing, because before there was absolutely no point in doing so. Before that you were just using your flamethrower to try to destroy it from an awkward angle or something. Enough of that, let's come to the new items. First off, we're looking at a new spy watch, the Grandfather. And I will show you the stats, but you have to know something. What you see there is completely bugged. Not everything is shown, and what is shown is displayed completely incorrectly. It's actually working like this. 50% less time taken to cloak, 50% less time taken to decloak. But on the other hand, minus 100% cloak regeneration rate and plus 50% cloak drain rate. To understand how this works, I'm going to show you a tier walkway example first. I can cloak almost instantly, get behind someone, uncloak, backstab, get away. So because cloaking is almost instant now, having a faster drain rate and, more importantly, no regeneration rate at all is the only possible way to balance this item. Because you can appear behind someone before they even notice something. Now just to understand how fast this cloaking actually is, take a look at this. I will stab this engineer now and instantly cloak without zapping the sentry and will still get away. Just to demonstrate you how good it actually is. Next up we're here again with the pyro and a new flamethrower. The compression canister. And this list is mostly complete, unlike the last item, but there is one attribute missing, 50% faster air blast firing speed. But for the other ones, air blast can now be charged, which will push enemies further. Little interesting story here, this item attribute was actually part of the already existing ones. I did not create it, I just added it to this item. And it works. On top of that it also is minus 50% air blast cost, so one air blast costs only 10 ammo now. But on the other hand, you now have plus 200% flamethrower ammo consumed per second, which means even during a little spy checking or something will pretty much use up like a quarter of your entire ammo now, so use it wisely. Now because this item attribute has never actually been finished, it's really incomplete. On one hand, it does not make any sounds whatsoever when charging up your air blast. I'm currently holding down my right mouse button, but you can't see how far the charge is already because there are no indicators on the hotbar and you can't hear anything, so you just have to guess. But I pressed it down for a really long time and take a look at this. It's like, whoa. On the other hand, doing a rapid fire will still just do the normal air blast. It's just charging it will do more and more good of that. On the other hand, the increased ammo is a very serious problem. Let's take a look at this engineer. I killed him and used exactly a quarter of my entire ammo. But on the other hand, you're pretty much guaranteed now to get some reflect kills. You actually don't even need to probably aim anymore. You just need to look at this guy, keep pressing your mouse too, and he's dead. You can do this multiple times, in fact. Well, sometimes it works. To what comes down to it, this weapon pretty much promotes spammy habits, but on the other hand, it's not like the degreaser already doesn't do that, and the pyro is pretty much more of a supporter class now than it is in actually the offensive class. But yeah. And last but not least, on the new items, we have a new PDA for the engineer. And I think this is one of the first PDAs ever to be suggested. Before I tell you about this thing, there's one thing you should know. Let's pretend a gunslinger never existed. It never hit the light of day and thus never a mini-sentry. Okay? Good. Minus 50 reduction in building cost. And on top of that, plus 75 faster building speed. But you cannot repair your buildings. They all have only half of their health and the sentry guns are doing 50% less damage. So let's take a look how it works. As you can see, sentry gun with 80, dispenser 50 and the teleporter 75 metal each. And if I put it right here, you can see it builds almost in the exact same speed as a normal mini sentry would. So here, normal mini sentry speed. The animation is a little bit broken, but yeah. The interesting part, it can still be upgraded. But as you can see, even now it still has less power than a normal level 1 mini sentry. And even if I'm going to upgrade it to level 3 now, nothing is going to change. Obviously this also works for dispensers, teleporters, and yeah, it's pretty much supposed to be a quick support engineer. And I actually wanted to make it so that you can't upgrade any buildings. So basically it's like a gunslinger for every building. There were people having the idea of a mini dispenser, which builds in just a few seconds, but can't be upgraded, can't be repaired, pretty much can't be done anything with. So that's just like an alternative. And finally, the grand finale you've all been waiting for, the highlight of the week. Which class is it gonna be? It's going to be the heavy, and we have the new weapon! Yes! And this idea is just so insane, it had to be in the game. It's a combination of two proposed item changes, which on themselves were kinda boring really, but combined they were absolutely fantastic. So it does 25% extra damage now, has 50% faster firing speed, and yeah, so pretty much you can insta-kill anything you look at right now. But it comes with a big downside. Remember the Razorback I showed you in the last episode? Someone had the idea to make it an actual weapon, by making it a negative utterance. Every time you kill someone, you will need to laugh. But on the upside, you will now taunt twice as fast, so it's not going to be as punishing. But still, killing someone and having to taunt in mid-battle is a pretty huge deal. And on top of that, you also have only half of your ammo, so you need to be very, very resourceful. Let's see how it works in game. And that brings us to the end of this episode. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope some of the ideas you've just seen were pretty interesting for you. If you have any ideas how to buff, nerf, fix or anything with them, leave your ideas down in the comments. And remember, you have now time until next Friday to submit new ideas for the next episode. Until then, I'm Selbi, and I'll see you next week.